Okay, part two. I have finished belting up my new aluminum factory area, and my drones are running, and I did the debugging pass where I found all the lifters I put the wrong way around and all the places where I missed things. Got it all working, and now it's time to evaluate it. Temporarily, I have some sinks here. We have filled up our outbound drone ports. Nobody's pulling from them yet, so I'm taking my output belts and I'm saying, hey, if I had any output, send it that way. You see, we've got a third belt here. This is because I am providing outputs of 2 aluminum casings drone ports and a aluminum ingot. So if the casings are backed up, I'm going to provide ingots. I may change that one splitter. There's a splitter buried down in the middle down there where I can say whether I'm balancing the ingots out or only sending the overflow. Currently, I'm only sending overflow because I want to exercise my aluminum casing production as much as possible. So let's see what we've got. Let's start at the top. We have 6 drone ports that are fetching bauxite. These are all, they're all running fairly decent rates. Some more than others. I'm not balancing between them. Each drone port is feeding one refinery, which means if one of my sources runs dry, then that refinery is going to run dry. It would be unfortunate if it was one of these outboard ones, because that would have the knock-on effect of these refineries in the middle would slow down because they wouldn't be getting enough recycled water. So, at some point I may want to take this down below and take these belts, these 6 belts here, and do something to balance across them. Maybe have each one provide excess into a central pool that gets filtered out to the rest. I don't know, that might be a little complicated, but this is good enough. And right now it is so far keeping up. So let's pick a refinery. So he's running at 100%, and he's got full loads of bauxite and water, and his outputs are alumina solution and silica, and they are being drained very rapidly. And he's been running for a while, so he's ramped up and he's showing an average of 100%. And I'm just going to glance through these. The aluminum scrap is also nearly 100%. And yeah, it looks like this guy at one point, oh, there we are. Okay, so Big Al wants bauxite 2. Is taking from West High, which may not have enough bauxite to support this. I will have to reevaluate who gets bauxite from where, but he's still doing a pretty good job. Thank you, autosave. And 100%. Ooh. So this is the second time where one guy has been running 100%, and the other guy's running some fraction, and the guy in the middle is running the same fraction as the first one. Okay, he's catching up now. Good. Coincidence, I guess. And so far, what I'm seeing is that I didn't hook up these drone ports to bauxite ports that actually can support all of that. So each port needs to support 240 bauxite per minute. And if there's anybody else grabbing from that bauxite port, then we may not have enough. So I will go out and chase down some more bauxite and hook it up differently at some point in the future. Or maybe I will reserve these, the bauxite drone ports that are feeding me, and find out whoever else is using them, probably these guys down here, and say, no, you have to use somebody else because I need this income. Anyway, so we're turning out our aluminum scrap, and our water's getting recycled, and we've got our coal and our aluminum solution. cycling around. The alumina is all very local here. And this will run a little bit of alumina that'll, so as one machine gets ahead of another, we will spurt some alumina solution into the bucket, and then we'll drain it back out as we use it. And that's fine. I ended up routing my silica back to the top. If your silica overflows, you need to get rid of it, and that's where we do that. But we'll see why that's not going to happen. So under the deck, very simple routing on this deck. We've got silica coming out towards us and going down, and we've got bauxite coming in from the other side going up, and we've got coal, and we've got our output. There we go. And yeah, we need to get better sources of bauxite in. So second floor. Second floor is mainly responsible for the alumina ingot foundries. And those will run short on the aluminum scrap if the machines up there slow down, and they are because I'm running low on bauxite, darn it. But when I'm not running low on bauxite, they keep up just fine. So if we sat here and watched this, we would not notice the aluminum scrap stalling. And we checked really quick earlier. Everybody's healthy, nobody's backed up, everybody's got a supply. And our outputs from that are 3 partially filled conveyor belts full of aluminum ingots. Now, the inputs to this are silica and aluminum scrap. We'll get back to this mess later. And the silica is a mess because I decided I was going to route all of the lines of silica individually. And so the belting here is dominated by silica. And that's what happens down here. All of these guys exist to create enough silica so that we can run the rest of the plant. Now we get some silica from our refineries above, and we need to always drain the silica from above, but we need to use silica from below. Now we need roughly 1/3 of our silica comes from above. So not knowing what the ratio is going to be, and knowing that anybody here can stall, which would change the ratio, I have this layout for doing a priority merge of belts. It looks messy, and I think it's messy, but the principle is simple. On the top, we have our high priority silica coming in. This line must move. So we go into a priority splitter, and if we can send things to the left and right, we do, and if we are blocked up, we send it onwards. So we'll take half of it one way and half of it the other. And then down below, we've got a normal merger because there is no priority merger. And it will take from the right and from the left and out here. And it should alternate. So in theory, we should never see any silica coming out here. But we do because this silica does back up. So if this is filled, we'll spit some on further. It'll do the same thing again, where we'll send it down both sides, and if it's backed up, we'll spit it onward. And we go all the way down. I do that 4 times. So if this were a fair split, it'd be 1/3 times 1/3 times 1/3 times 1/3. So 1/9, 180, one part at 81 would come through if it was a normal splitter, but they're priority splitters, so much less. So we're going to grab anything that comes out the end here. Remember, we cannot afford to block. So if it comes out the end here, we are going to send it up for the sink. And the bottom half brings our main supply of silica from below and runs it through here. And we repeatedly get merges from above, so we'll be taking less and less and less from the left. So 1/3 of what we want, 1/3 of that, 1/3 of that, 1/3 of that. So This should only move when we don't have enough from above. Well, stuff from above is only a third of what we need, so we should be only filling in that 2/3. And if it's full, and we stall it. That's okay. And each one of these lines is a fairly small quantity relative to the 780 on the belt. So these belts are going to be full and stuttering and slow, and that's all right. We go back to these machines. I have 6 machines making silica, which is slightly more than I need, and we are doing a total of 450 silica per minute down here. And I think I needed 400, but don't quote me on that. So silica output, and the input comes from the right. We have raw quartz. I have 3 drone ports pulling raw quartz, and they are keeping up nicely at about 300 items per minute. And I believe this incoming transfer rate is going to track closely with what I use. So there is our silica backflow, or not backflow, silica backstop. Main silica supply actually, but the other supply has to take priority. So do you call it the main supply when it's 2/3, but you're prioritizing the other one? I don't know. And all that comes together when our foundries turn out aluminum ingots. The ingots go down here to the bottom level. Remember, we did our silica here. We also do our final assembly. So our ingots come down. The middle belt is split 3 ways. And part of it goes over here and is merged with the left, and part of it merges with the right. And then the last part of it goes forward. Now it's a smart splitter. You can see it down there. And it's currently programmed to only send the overflow down the middle. Whatever goes down the middle is going to wind up in the middle drone port. I think I'm going to turn that on because generally if I'm not using any ingots, that'll be full. That's cool. So for the moment, the fact that it's a smart splitter is no longer important. Oh, let's fill in that hole too. Come on. So we rotate it into place. I think that's level. It's possible to place blueprints 1/2 of the tile too high, which comes in really handy when you're working in the water and you want to, whatever level the water extractors are on, you want to go 1.5 of these thin tiles high to match up with the pipes. Oh, let's take a look at that. And at this point, because I just turned this on, we should start seeing aluminum ingots showing up. And yeah, there we go. So 1/3 of the ingots coming from the center are going to be routed to our drone port until it's full. And it will get more if we are backed up on the ingots. Maximum would be the output of just the center foundries. So we're not going to be a major source of ingots from here. I'm assuming that we're going to use a lot of casings. And we come down, and our coal input, we're not going to take coal by drones. We placed it up here. This particular area with these crater lakes is nice because it has coal. And I keep splitting off of the coal and splitting off of the coal and splitting off of the coal. I'm intending to tear things down, so all sorts of coal priority splitters. But eventually it comes back to our coal miners, which are now Mark III. And it is useless to run them at 250% when they're turning out 1,200 because I could only get 780 per minute on the bus. Yeah, let's do the same thing here. I really wish that there was a way to get all 1,200 coal out of the miner onto the bus, but it is what it is. So you can see that these two miners that I was tapping from my earlier stuff are having some of their coal diverted, not all of it. Now this coal is going back to the main base, where we're both using it for a little bit of crafting, and it's going to the old coal power plant, which has not yet been decommissioned. Am I actually getting it all sent? So it looks like I'm keeping up with it, but I'm not saturating it. That's fine. So at some point, if we keep diverting coal from our coal mines up here, our coal power plants will start losing power, but that's okay. We still have plenty of power. In fact, current power situation, our capacity is 43.4 gigawatts, and we are in fact producing at our full capacity. In theory, if all of everything turned on, our max consumption would be just under our maximum capacity and slightly over our current productions. These are starting to cross. This is the first time this has happened since I went to the larger power plant. But in practice, we are only consuming about 24 gigawatts out of the 43. So before I build any more huge plants like this, I need to start decommissioning some things. Obviously, I'm going to need my battery factory, but I think this factory can be simplified down to just him. I mean, literally. I just need a supply of aluminum ingots and one simple constructor that's making some fluid tanks very slowly. And this is actually where I worked out the priority splitter thing. This is my empty fluid tank area. Now, I built this when I assumed I would be sending empties back to high dots to pick up fulls, and it would queue them. In practice, what I'm doing is I'm getting a certain number of tanks and setting them up in a closed loop, so everybody that uses nitrogen flasks has a dedicated filler station. So there's a filler station and a drainer station that work together, and there's a fixed number of flasks that go between them. So in theory, I don't need this at all. What I do need is somewhere is one of these machines keeping some box full of the fluid tanks. Let's make sure nobody is talking to me. I'm talking to no one. So at this point, I believe this entire thing can be decommissioned. I already untied him. I believe these aluminum casings. So Super wants to use, I need to switch him over to using as aluminum. So we need to go to bigger Al. So now that I've done that, this guy could be drained. So that output's drained, that output's drained, that output's not in use. So this mini factory here that took me a bit of time to set up, it was somebody else's design, tutorial design. You can see it's all laid out with colors and everything. Very clear. It helped me understand how to build it, but I think this can be decommissioned. I hate to just start ripping it up because I might be running power through it. This guy over here, these are batteries, and which means I would need the battery machines, and I would need a source of the fluid, which means most of this can't go away. I believe I could request in the ingots, which would simplify some things, but then I would, well, if I request in the ingots, that means I would have the aluminum scrap coming in, No, because I would eliminate this machine. So if I requested in the ingots, that would mean that I would have left these refineries producing alumina solution. I would need to do something with the silica. And of course we keep the sulfuric acid. So we just sink the silica. So yes, I guess a lot of this could go away if I requested in the ingots. Oh, wait a minute. I'm using the ingots to make casing. I could request in the casings. Okay. So I can get rid of him. I can gut the portions of this that make casings and request casings instead, and that'll reduce my power. Anyway, so much for part 2. Really quick one. Yeah, I think my next step is to go nail down some more bauxite. But this is working, and now I can safely pick up my sinks and the diversion stuff. I no longer need the splitters that are doing the diversion. So let's get that cleaned back up there. Okay, there we go. So at this point, because I'm not currently fetching very much, these actually have some trading partners. But because these are not generally spewing stuff, I've got a bunch of factories, but they've all backed up. I'm not really consuming anything off the back end. This should come to stasis and go idle. And I'm going to cut the recording so I can start cleaning up all of this crap. Talk to you later.